Dollemocracy. Facing down pessimistic politics with realistic optimism.
So there's an important case in Texas right now involving a woman who is seeking an abortion. She is at about 20 weeks right now. Her fetus has a deadly condition. The doctors believe that it will not survive childbirth, and if it does, it will only survive for a brief period of time, and that brief period will be filled with pain and suffering and turmoil. And so she filed a lawsuit, went to court, originally had her abortion approved by a judge. And the scene was remarkable. Like everyone was on a Zoom meeting. There was like 10 people on this Zoom meeting deciding whether or not this woman who has been admitted to emergency care 4 times in the past month has been told that her fetus will not survive, has been told that continuing her pregnancy puts her future ability to have children at risk. The state of Texas knows all of this, and they are instead intervening in the judge's original order to allow her to have this abortion. Ken Paxton, the state attorney general in Texas, saying that if this abortion is allowed to go through, that the state will suffer an irreparable loss if she terminates her pregnancy. That's the argument that he's making. And so the Texas Supreme Court has paused the judge's decision in allowing her to have the abortion. Now the Texas Supreme Court is going to weigh in, and in the meantime, her health is in jeopardy. But I want to kind of go back, because this has been rapidly unfolding over the past few days. Let's go back to where that original judge's ruling occurred.
A historic decision.
I am going to grant the temporary restraining order.
A Texas judge ruling in favor of Kate Cox, who asked the court for an abortion in a state that doesn't allow them and threatens to prosecute anyone who helps women get them.
The idea that Miss Cox wants desperately to be a parent, and this law might actually cause her to lose that ability, is shocking.
Cox, who teared up at the hearing, is 20 weeks pregnant with a fetus that has a fatal genetic abnormality. The suit filed Tuesday also states giving birth could affect the Dallas woman's ability to have more children. The emergency order applies only to the 31-year-old mother of 2 and ensures her doctor will not face penalties.
This case proves that abortion is essential, life-saving health care, and the judge recognized that immediately.
Texas has one of the nation's most restrictive abortion laws, a near total ban on the procedure.
What the judge did today will create more confusion and ultimately more harm and that's what we're concerned about.
For her part, Cox, in a newspaper op-ed this week, wrote, "I do not want to continue the pain and suffering that has plagued this pregnancy," adding, "I do not want my baby to arrive in this world only to watch her suffer."
The Texas Attorney General's office, which argued that Cox should not be permitted to have an abortion, issued a statement saying that her doctor could be prosecuted if she performs one. It hasn't said whether it will appeal today's decision.
So, of course, this is the party of law and order. They respect judges. They respect the judge's orders, right?
Also the party of family values. This woman who wants to have kids in the future.
Right.
And that ability could very likely be taken away if the Texas has its way.
Right. So even though the judge said, this is very necessary, this woman needs to have this procedure, Attorney General Ken Paxton said, no, that's not going to happen, filed an appeal, and now it's in the hands of the Texas Supreme Court, which should be making a decision soon.
It is... You know those commercials that after Roe came out where it's a politician in like a doctor's office with a patient and like, well, I've got to be here too because I'm part of making this decision too.
Right.
And a lot of people criticize those like, oh, this is way over the top. No, but this isn't really blah, blah, blah. Here we are. It's actually happening minus them actually being in the doctor's exam room. This Zoom call that you're talking about, where it's a bunch of ostensibly overwhelming group of white men deciding for this lady whether or not she's allowed to have the life-saving and torture-avoiding procedure to an abortion to end the misery of this fetus before it is delivered, and then suffers like baby Milo, like that TikTok that you did about a baby that was forced to be born and then died suffocating in its parents' arms.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's absolutely horrific. And you have these people aren't medical professionals.
Right.
They don't know what's going on. They shouldn't be the ones who have any authority or any say over what's happening. And again, this woman's life is in danger.
Yeah.
This is a high-risk pregnancy. She's been admitted to emergency care in just 4 times in just the past month. This is serious. This is putting her health at risk. It's putting her future fertility at risk. So I think it's important that we actually hear directly from her. Her name is Kate Cox, and she gave an interview on PBS with Amna Nawaz. And it's going to be hard to listen to this because she has 2 kids. And like she said, this is a wanted baby. She wanted this child. And so not only is she going through the pain and suffering of having to fear for her life, fear for the fetus, having this all play out publicly, having to do battle and court while she's simultaneously trying to save her own life. I think it's important to hear from her specifically because she has an important message for people who may think that this could never be them.
Kate Cox, this is turned into a legal conversation. This is your life. This is your family. This is your health. And you hinted a little bit, you've mentioned how difficult, how much pain you've been in the last few weeks, your trips to the emergency room several times. Can you help folks understand what the last few weeks have been like for you?
It's hard to even put into words. It's devastating. I'm very grateful for my 2 beautiful babies at home, but we desperately want a third. We're so excited for this baby. She is deeply loved, deeply wanted, but fortunately, pregnancies are not all rainbows and sunshines, and it's surreal that I'm navigating these complications, publicly. It feels like this is a medical decision, for me and for our family. And so to be going through, the loss and the pain, and it's hard.
Kate, you didn't have to give an interview today. You don't have to give any interviews, but you did want to speak today. Why?
I wanted the opportunity to tell my story. I know personally before going into this, I never imagined we'd be in this position. I never imagined I would ever want or need an abortion. And I think by sharing this story, you can imagine, the women that you love in your life, and, imagine they're pregnant and so happy and looking forward to the baby, and they find out that she will not survive. She'll either die in my belly, or I'll carry her to term and have to deliver her stillborn, or if she arrives into this world, her life will be measured in minutes or hours or days and plagued with medical devices. She would need to be placed directly onto hospice. So imagine receiving that news and pairing that with the risks and complications of continuing the pregnancy and the childbirth. It's overwhelming. So I wanted to share my story because I never would have thought of it before it happened to me. And so I just, want people to hear it.
That's Kate Cox using words about how devastating this is, how deeply loved, deeply wanted this baby was. And the family values, quote unquote, Republican Party in Texas is traumatizing her publicly, dragging this out, not allowing Kate Cox and her physician, her trained, educated medical professional, to make this decision. They're interjecting themselves and could very well extricate from her ability to have kids in the future. Again, family values, Republican Party.
Right. And again, remember that the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, after the initial judge's ruling that would have permitted Kate Cox to obtain this life-saving procedure, to obtain the abortion that she needs, that he sent a letter to 3 Houston area hospitals where Kate Cox's doctors hold privileges, claiming that the judge's order would not shield them from criminal charges or fines should they proceed with the abortion. So he is determined. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about what happens to her. He wants to apparently test some of his legal arguments using this case before the Supreme Court in Texas. And that's really what it's about for him. It's not about Kate Cox. It's not even about the unborn child, as he's referring to it in his legal filings. Kate Cox is the one who's being impacted here. Kate Cox is the one who is in grief because this was a wanted pregnancy. The right wing tries to act like women who are seeking abortions are reckless and they're just out there banging everybody and getting pregnant and using abortions as birth control. No, you heard from Kate Cox. She's crushed and she's having to go through this publicly, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, this is another reality that we're facing that the Republican Party has denied for months and months and months. Like in states all across the country, in Louisiana, this has happened. In Idaho, this has happened. We've talked about where they say, "Oh no, the law is very clear, very plain. No one's at risk of prosecution." And then here we see the coin has flipped. We know what Ken Paxton is doing. He's now threatening doctors with prosecution if indeed they practice medicine. And that's what this is, practicing medicine in the state of Texas.
Right. And you heard in that first news package, there was a guy who said that this case is going to make things more confusing. He was a representative from a Right to Life organization. This case isn't going to make things more confusing. What has made things confusing is Ken Paxton refusing to follow what the judge ruled.
Right.
And creating more fear for doctors that even when a judge says this abortion should be permitted, that they're still going to be at risk of prosecution, of fines, of losing their medical license and their livelihood to be able to continue to make a living. And, this case also gets to the heart of why there shouldn't be hurdles in place to obtaining abortions. I think sometimes people hear, getting an ultrasound and having a waiting day period, that seems reasonable. Why shouldn't we permit that? Well, because it's pushing someone like Kate Cox further and further along in their pregnancy. And Republicans claim that they, are worried about viability.
Right.
When you have these hurdles in place, I can't think of the word that I'm looking for right now, but the hurdles in place that delay care. Restrictions, I guess, restrictions in place, that delay care, then that's going to push them beyond that viability threshold. And then I guess maybe that's the intent.
Yeah, that is the intent.
Yeah.
I'm at a loss for words because this is exactly what the Republican Party has claimed for generations to not be about. And then here we are, they're making it as difficult as possible for mothers to create the families so we can have the Sam Alito domestic supply of babies, or however he referred to that in that opinion.
Yeah. Well, remarkably, there actually was a period of time when there was a governor of Texas, Ann Richards.
Yeah.
That name may be familiar to some people because it's actually the mother of Cecile Richards of Planned Parenthood, who was the president of Planned Parenthood for a long time. I don't know, over a decade, certainly. And Ann Richards, I came across a clip of her sitting with Katie Couric talking about her position on abortion. And this was the governor of Texas in the 90s on abortion.
Issues do you agree and disagree with them about?
Well, number one, I disagree with both of them on abortion. I think a woman has a right, and every woman has a right, and no government should interfere whatsoever in a woman's decision about whether or not to have children. I mean, no, wait, don't jump all over that guy. Let me tell you, I have seen more children in a world of hurt as a consequence of their birth to people who did not want them and could not care for them than I have from people who've had abortions. And I want to respect anybody who has a moral disagreement with that. But you disagree in your own life. Don't tell the government to legislate what my daughters or my granddaughters or other women must do.
Now, of course, this is the reasonable position to take, and we juxtapose this just decades ago in the state of Texas to what we have now with Ken Paxton and the Republican Party nationally, but also in the state of Texas, that against all evidence of what the consequence will be here, they're pressing forward. We're seeing maternity wards having to close, OB/GYN services just being removed from hospitals in Idaho and other states, and this is what's going to happen in Texas. And here's the breaking news: they don't give a shit. They don't care if it's going to spike maternal mortality, infant mortality in their state. They don't care.
Yeah.
Because it serves the evangelical monster that controls much of what the Republican Party does and believes.